My name's Sam. I'm the Partnerships and Communications Manager here at Fairygodboss. And Fairygodboss is the largest career community for women. Our mission is to improve the workplace by increasing transparency, and we offer a variety of free resources like anonymous company reviews, job listings, articles, virtual recruiting events, and so much more to help women succeed in their careers. Before we get started, we will be taking questions at the end. I know a few people submitted questions ahead of time. I have them in a list. We'll get to as many as we can at the end of this session. So feel free to leave them in the Q&A feature. You'll find that at the bottom of your screen. You can leave questions as yourself or anonymously, so ask whatever comes to mind. We'll also be recording the webinar and sending it out in an email afterwards. So if you miss anything or you want to watch it back, you'll have the ability to do so. Here with me today is Velma McCaffrey. Velma is the CEO and founder of Work Bigger. Her passion for career coaching was born out of her personal struggles with finding meaningful work that allowed her to make an impact without burning out. Thanks so much for being here today, Velma. Over to you.
Thanks for having me, Sam, and hi, everyone. So excited to see where everyone's calling from. I'm dialing in from Hoboken, New Jersey, and I actually see one of our members, Christy Powers, is on, so really awesome to see you here, Christy, and everyone else. Before we dive in, and welcome again to 3 Untold Secrets to Making a Successful Career Change. Before we dive in, I always have everyone do this. Make sure you turn off all of your distractions. If your phone nearby, put it away. If you have a million tabs open, that's something I'm always guilty of. Close them down. Don't check your email. I want to stress that the more present you can be on this call with me today, the more you're going to get out of this session. So with that, I also want to add, let's keep this interactive. I'm going to be asking you questions throughout the session because I would love for you to participate. The more that you can participate when I'm asking questions, again, the more you're going to get out of it. So, all right. So with that, let's jump into my cursor here. Let's jump into the 3 things that you're going to learn today. So we're going to talk about how to get unstuck and take massive action toward your career change today. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through what you need to start making progress if you're feeling that sense of stuckness or you're not making as much progress as you want. You're also going to learn how to feel more energized in the process. When we're going through the career transition process, we experience a lot of highs and lows. And when we're in those low moments, it's just an energy suck. And it's really important that you work through that because this process can actually be enjoyable, which I know sounds crazy, but it's totally possible. And I'd love for you to walk away with that belief today and that, that vision of how this could be a better, more enjoyable process for you. And then I'm going to talk about, and you're going to learn how to have it all, how to move into work that's purposeful, pays well, and allows for you to make time for your life outside of work, right? Because that's possible. I hear all the time, if I'm going to make a big career pivot, then I have to give up the pay and I have to take 3 steps back. And I really want to change that thinking for you today. All right, so make sure that you stick around until the end. I have a special offer today that I'm making available for this week and early next week. It's time sensitive and I'm going to share it at the end. So just make sure you stick around so that you don't miss that part. All right, now the first thing that I want to share to ensure that you have a successful career change, meaning you are finding and doing work that checks off all of your boxes, right? It allows you to make an impact. It pays well. It feels challenging. You're not bored out of your mind. The way to ensure that is really to start with the end in mind. And what I mean by that is to have a clear vision and to be really specific about what it is that you want. Okay, I hear all the time with career transitioners that I need to create a stronger resume and I need to create a more powerful LinkedIn profile and I need to find the right connection. And all of that is absolutely true. But all of that stuff, right? The job search strategy, your materials, how you present yourself, all of that is so much easier when you can start with the clear vision and when you have the end in mind, because that way your messaging is so much more targeted, right? You know what you're sharing on your LinkedIn profile, you know what you're writing on your resume, and you know that when you're going out there networking, right? You have clear, specific asks, and the people who are supporting you know what to do. So I'm going to talk a lot, I'm going to talk more about this as we continue on today, but I really just wanted to hone in on that and start off with that, because creating that vision and having that mission will really make the job search for you and the career transition, wherever you are in it, a lot easier. All right, so before we go on, let me introduce myself and share a little bit more about me and why you should be listening to me today. My name is Velma McCaffrey, and as Sam said, I'm the CEO and founder of Work Bigger. Work Bigger is a career development platform on a mission to help you do work you love that makes a difference in the world without burning out. And we do that in 3 ways. We offer group coaching via a membership, and our goal with that is to make career coaching and leadership development a lot more affordable and accessible. We see that a lot of people aren't getting trainings at their organizations, and when they are, you don't necessarily have the safe space to talk through the ups and downs of your career. And then we also offer private coaching that's meant to go even deeper than we do with our group coaching membership. And, if you have a specific timeline, you have a specific goal that you want to work on, the private coaching is really powerful for that. And then we also lead trainings at organizations. I'll share a little bit more about some of the companies that we've worked with. I started Work Bigger because of a personal pain point. Again, going back to Sam's introductions, I spent all of my 20s, I was super ambitious, really driven, but I felt really disconnected from my career. And essentially what happened is I started living in this cycle that you see here. So I graduated from college, I was super driven, started my first media job, and something wasn't clicking for me. A few months in, I just was feeling really disconnected. I wasn't clear on my purpose. I started to feel really frustrated, and I thought, you know what? I think it's the job's fault. So I'm going to go out and find another job. And then a few months into that, I started feeling this same feeling of disconnection. And, I think navigating the whole career development process without the vision and the mission for myself was really tough. And eventually what I started to see, I was in this cycle for about, 7 or more years. I just started to see that I was stuck in this negative place. I was feeling really frustrated. And I knew that whole time that I was wasting time, I was wasting energy, and I was wasting money, because I knew my time would be better served having more clarity and having more intention. But I just didn't know what that was, which made it really challenging. So what I decided to do was go back to business school. I think a lot of us view grad school as that way to pivot when we're stuck, right? It's like the norm. Let's go back to grad school, and that's going to help us make the transition. But what I saw when I was there is that so many of my classmates were stuck in the same place. They were all looking to make a pivot and, hadn't really done the work to figure out, is this really the right thing for me? And what is my return on investment going to be? Because things like grad school are so expensive, right? And you're also, if you go full-time, you're giving up at least 2 years of a full-time salary. And for me, that meant leaving a pretty good job at Condé Nast, a really good salary, to go back full-time for 2 years. So when I witnessed that, when I saw so many people struggling with the same pain point, and also that we weren't really doing the work required to make the right transition, that's how Work Bigger was born. In addition to that, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Eastern Europe in a country called Albania, which I've shared a picture here. And this has also had a huge impact on why I'm building Work Bigger today and why I started Work Bigger. I took a trip with my family this summer. Here's a photo of all of us, my parents, my siblings, our kids, and we went back, and my mom and I were sitting on the beach, and we're talking about how Albania has changed over the years, because it's a very different place now than it was when I was there and when I was growing up there. We were talking about the people, and we were talking about work. And she said to me, to work hard is to love life. I'm going to repeat that. To work hard is to love life. And that, obviously, because I'm in the working world, that really, really resonated with me and stuck with me. But I started to think, I'm like, hard work today is not the way my mom meant it to be. The hard work today has become about burning out and achieving the status quo and checking off some box that was created there by somebody else, right? We're not necessarily always working for the right reasons, and that's why we're feeling so burned out. But I learned from this experience that my family has always used work as a vehicle to something bigger. For my parents, they used work as a vehicle to leave Albania and to escape a very oppressive government to give us more opportunity. So as I started thinking about this after my trip, I thought, even though my parents didn't have the opportunity to reach their full potential, they had very different circumstances. They always used work as a vehicle to something bigger. And I think ultimately that's what's missing today. And we have an opportunity to do that, right? We have an opportunity to use work as a vehicle for creativity and for living a better life and for making an impact. So now, Work Bigger has been around for about 4 years. You may have seen us in the Zoe Report, Forbes Women, Fortune, Thrive. We've also worked with some incredible companies that I'm really proud of, like Burberry, Oath, Yahoo AOL, Eisner Amper, Financial Times. As a coach, I've been on this path. Well, I've studied personal and professional development informally for more than 15 years because I've always been obsessed with this space, even though I didn't know that this was my path and that this is what I was supposed to be doing. But more recently, I'm trained with the Neuroleadership Institute as a coach. And the Neuroleadership Institute combines neuroscience with leadership development. I find their tools incredibly powerful. I'm going to share some of the learnings that I've incorporated into Work Bigger here with you today, because I think it makes a lot of what we're experiencing so much more practical. So in addition to this, I have a background in corporate. Before starting my own company, I spent about 10 years working in media at companies like the Associated Press, Condé Nast, Group M. And because I have a corporate background, I've personally experienced the disconnection that exists in the corporate world. And that's why I've been so adamant on building this framework on finding your mission and developing that vision for yourself, because it also really came from my own experience. All right. Now, I would love to jump in and talk about you. So tell me, as you're sitting here today, right, and you joined today for a specific reason, right? And tell me if this sounds like you. You have big dreams and goals. You are really ambitious, yeah? And you want to do work you love that makes a difference. Purposeful work is really important to you, okay? That impact, wanting to make an impact, wanting to feel challenged, wanting to see the fruits of your labor. That's something that you really care about. And then also you're in a career transition or you're considering one, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're just working, you're working in the corporate world. It could be, but maybe it could mean you're thinking about starting your own company, or maybe you're thinking about pivoting from your own company to something else. Yeah, I see comments coming in. Yep, yes, 100%. Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys. So what you may be experiencing, right, if you're in this process, is that you may be burned out or just overwhelmed by the process of making this change because there's so much to consider. Or maybe you're stuck in an energy draining job, and when that's the case, it makes it really hard to plan in advance, right? Because you're coming home after work and you're just exhausted, and even though you want to get out of the cycle, it's just really difficult to get there because you're tired. Maybe you're feeling stuck. So I hear this all the time. Like, I know I want to make a change, but if I make a change, I have to choose, right? I have to choose between purposeful work, good pay, or work-life balance. And you feel like you have to give something up. I'm going to address this more today because this is one of the myths that I want to break. And then another thing you may be experiencing is you may not know where to start because there's so many different moving pieces to this process. And maybe you're thinking like, okay, well, where do I even begin? So I see the comments coming in. I was going to ask you guys, and let me know if this is resonating with you and where you're all at in the process. And I'm hearing that this sounds like you guys, and yeah, you're feeling this. Ella says coming back to the workforce after taking a couple of years off for motherhood and trying to figure out where to start from. I totally get that. hello, I'm a mom too, and I'm out of breath because I'm pregnant, and I'm like talking, and I'm like, oh my God, the whole out of breath thing is real. So thank you, congrats. Yeah, so I totally feel you. So with that, what I want to say is, if that resonates with you, right, it's possible, right, to find work that feels purposeful, pays well, and allows you to make an impact. It's possible for you to move through this career transition in a way that doesn't suck, in a way that you actually enjoy, in a way that allows you to grow in the process, okay? And that takes believing that it's possible and committing to the process. I'm going to talk about more of that today. And I also want to stress, because I always think about the larger impact, right, of staying stuck. What happens when you stay stuck? For me, staying stuck in that cycle meant years of wasted time and energy and money, right? But in addition to that, for me, it had an impact on my colleagues. I wasn't showing up at work in the best way that I could. I wasn't showing up with my family the best way that I could. I wasn't making the impact that I knew I was capable of making, right? And then on the other side of that, the impact of working from your highest potential, right? Think about your contribution. When you don't give up the pay, think about how much more you're able to contribute. When you don't give up the opportunity to make an impact and what you're able to give back in that way, how you show up, all of that stuff matters. So I really want to stress that today, that if this is resonating with you, it is completely possible. Okay, and we'll talk through that. So let's jump now into the 3 steps, right? Or like the 3 secrets that I talked about to making a successful career change. The first step is identifying the brain state that you're in. So this is where I'm going to start to bring in some of that neuroscience that I mentioned. So what are you thinking? Okay, this is foundational, right? So here are some of the thoughts that may be going, oops, it's not, okay. Here's some of the thoughts that may be going through your head. If we're going back to everything that I just asked you guys, right? I said, maybe this is how you're feeling burned out. You don't know where to start, right? I'm hearing here in the chat, I'm feeling burned out. Gosh, that's showing up a lot. Like you don't know where to start because you took some time off, all of that, right? So I'm guessing some of the thoughts, and you can do this for yourself too. You can think through like, well, what are some of the thoughts that are running through my head right now? I'm exhausted, I'm burned out, I don't know where to start. I'm gonna have to sacrifice a lot of my pay, or I'm gonna have to sacrifice my health. It's not possible. I hear that one all the time. This is going to be so hard. Okay, so I want you to hone in on what it is that you're thinking and feeling. And I'm gonna show you today how these thoughts and beliefs are holding you back, okay? And we're gonna break these myths and start to think differently, because this is foundational, right? Okay, so what I'll tell you is that the brain operates in 2 ways, okay? And I'm gonna share now why those thoughts are not serving your career change. And it's how important it is to identify the brain state you're in. So the brain operates in 2 different states, the away state and the torrid state. Okay, when you're in the away state, you're essentially in a place of fight or flight. So what you're doing is you're feeling this sense of stress or overwhelm, and you're avoiding, okay? You're avoiding it, you're procrastinating it, you're burying it deep down, or you're reacting. You're like, okay, well, again, you're probably burying it, and you're just moving forward without processing whatever is coming up for you. What's happening to your brain when it's in the away state, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that's responsible for decision making and planning, is really limited. And when the PFC, we'll call it the PFC because it's easier, when the PFC is limited, it impacts our ability to be creative. And creativity is really critical when we're in a career transition, right? Because we want to come up with different options for ourselves. It limits your ability to collaborate and to work well with others. It impacts your working memory, so you're not able to retain as much information because you're in survival mode, you're in fight or flight. So all of your energy is going to that. And what I think is even most harmful is that it impacts your field of view. So that black and white thinking that I keep bringing up, like I have to give up the pay or my health, right? Work-life balance. It limits your ability to see the possibilities for yourself, right? That's why you're kind of in that black and white view of it's either A or B. Can't have both, right? That's not possible. to give you an example of what, what the away state can look like, right, is maybe you just got laid off, right? And then what are you experiencing when you got laid off, right? You start to have tunnel vision, right? Again, you're in that place of fear. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of negative emotions. And maybe you're thinking, I'm never going to get another job, right? I did something wrong. So there's a lot of self-blame. How am I going to get out of this, right? You're not thinking creatively for yourself. You have limited memory. And so I want you to think about how that impacts your ability to come up with solutions for yourself. Another example that I like to share is if you're about to go and speak on stage and you're like totally terrified of public speaking, like right before you are about to go on, right, you may totally clamp up and get nervous. And that's because your body is in that fight or flight mode. You're in the away state. You have tunnel vision. You're basically just thinking, I'm really afraid right now. So this is just to share an example of what the away state can look like and when it can happen. The emotions that are associated with the away state are, they're driven by negative emotions. So you may be experiencing things like anger, frustration, confusion, overwhelm, right? And what happens? Well, this ultimately impacts the actions that you take, right? So let's say you're feeling a lot of fear or anxiety because you've been in this energy draining job for a while that doesn't feel purposeful, right? You haven't been able to figure it out. So maybe you're thinking, I'm so exhausted. I want to leave. I want to figure this out, but I don't know where to start. And if I make this change, I'm going to have to give up the good pay. So I want you to put yourself in this situation right now. Okay. And I have a question for you guys. If you are coming from this place, right? So you're feeling really tired, you're feeling burned out, you're feeling exhausted, you want to leave, but you don't know where to start, right? And this is the mental space that you're in. What is the action that you feel like taking from this place? Take a few seconds, think about it, and then share it in the chat. And I'll read a couple of them out loud. Okay, so put yourself in the situation. You're having this thought. You're feeling really frustrated. You're feeling really tired. What is the action that you're going to take when it comes to your career transition, career development, whatever goal it is that you have for yourself? Okay, so I hear I've left a high-paying job to start my next journey. I have not yet identified my next career. Okay, so I want you to think about the feeling that that's bringing up for you and the action that you're inspired to take from that place. Too exhausted to take any action. Yeah, so a lot of what I see here, right, when you're coming from the away state can be procrastination. You're totally avoiding, overwhelmed, paralyzed. So as you're honing in on those feelings, looking at a lot of stuff, but not doing anything about it again. So like the avoidance, so not making progress, right? Getting stuck. Goal is find my happy, find a job career when I do not have a sole mission, but several different passions. Okay. All right, so keep thinking about this even after this call. Okay, feeling pressured by golden handcuffs. So yeah, so hone in on the thought that you're experiencing, the feeling that brings up, and if you are in the away state, what that action is that you're taking. All right, so let's keep going. I want to talk now about the torrid state, which is really the opposite of the away state, right? When you're in the torrid state, you are in a place of reward. You're experiencing a dopamine release and you are moving toward an outcome. I love thinking about it that way, right? So away moves you away from the solutions. The torrid state moves you toward the outcomes. Okay, so your PFC, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's responsible for decision making, is in a very different place. It's highly functioning. So this means that you can plan a lot better. You can be more creative. You can come up with different solutions for your situation, right? You have increased cognition, so you can hold more information. You're able to work better with others. You can collaborate a lot more. And you also have a broader field of view. So what happens when you're in this state is you start to think, well, How can I get the job that allows me to make an impact and will pay me well? How can I get the job that's going to pay me what I need to feel good, to meet my needs and beyond, and is also going to allow me to make time for my life outside of work? You start coming up with different solutions that didn't exist. When you are in the torrid state, right, this state is driven by positive emotion. So you're experiencing things like excitement, joy, happiness, curiosity. Okay, so very different. And you may be thinking whether you got laid off or whether you are simply in the process of finding new work. I'm really excited to see what comes out of this next chapter. So do you see the difference? This comes from a place of possibility, right? Versus, I don't know where to start, I'm really stuck. It's okay that, you know, we all experience both states. It's part of the human condition. I'm going to talk more about that as well. But I want to share this because what happens, tell me now, I want you to share in the chat if you are feeling really excited, right? I'm really excited to see what comes out of this next chapter. What is the action that you're inspired to take here? So take 5 seconds and then share it in the chat, and I'll read through any of them. So Free, I see you're commenting on the away state. Great point. On the cycle, low vibration has resulted in low vibration. An answer to the torrid state: take risks, meet people, put myself out there more proactively. Exactly. So what happens when we're in the torrid state is we're experiencing a dopamine release. And when that happens, we have momentum and we're inspired to take action. It's just, it's a chemical thing almost, right? It's just, we feel like we can have more momentum. And then Sylvia, actually depressed, seeing the gulf between where I am in a way compared to where I need to be toward. How do I do that? So Sylvia, I would suggest going easy on yourself here. Okay, so we all experience the away state and the torrid state. It is part of the human condition. So you're not bad. This is not shameful if you're in the away state. Okay, so go easy on yourself, be a little kind to yourself, and use this as an opportunity to just ask yourself and just acknowledge, like, okay, I'm in the away state right now. What do I need to feel a little bit better about my situation? Is it talking to someone else? Is it finding support? Is it finding community? Okay, so I wouldn't use this as another reason to beat yourself up. I would use this as a reason to build awareness around your situation, because only from that place of awareness can you then start to make a change. All right, so I'm gonna move on and let's talk about, well, let me just give a quick takeaway here. So we see just from all of your comments as well, that operating from this place of possibility, right, enables you to take action, and you take action with more clarity, with more intention, and that's going to impact the results that you get, right? So we know now that mindset and your thoughts are playing a huge role in terms of you taking action or staying in inaction, right? Avoiding, procrastinating, or moving forward. So I just want to drive that point home. Now let's talk about step 2. Okay, step 2 is managing the away state. How do we manage the away state? You want to be able to leverage the right brain state, but the reality is, and this goes back to your comment, Sylvia, right? The reality is we can't be happy all the time. That's not realistic, right? So it's not how we work as humans. We experience both of those things, and the away state, I will tell you, is also there to teach you something, right? So I wouldn't shame yourself if you're in that place, right? But what you can do is to manage the away state, right? To use it as your teacher and as your tool in the process, right? So that you can enjoy this process more versus find it really demoralizing. And the way to do that is to identify your emotional triggers. What are emotional triggers? So emotional triggers are hotspots, okay, that give you an emotional charge, and essentially they shift the way you feel. And this way, the way I'm talking about them is from a negative perspective. In Work Bigger, we talk about positive triggers and negative triggers, but here I'm talking about those negative triggers, the things that shift you and, you know, make you go from maybe a place of neutrality or a place of calm to a place of like feeling charged, angry, upset. And the thing is, they tend to live in our subconscious, and this is why they're challenging, and this is why it can be challenging to identify the away state sometime, right? Emotional triggers can be a result of past experiences that we've had or certain beliefs that we have, right? And when something triggers them, we feel off. We may not fully understand why, right? And these subconscious events that we've experienced, they're essentially happening in the background, right? And then whatever happens in the present will trigger them to come back. So I'll give you an example. Maybe you're at work and you have a boss who micromanages you. I use this example because it comes up in Work Bigger all the time. We have a lot of members and clients who value their autonomy, and when they're working with a boss who's like a micromanager, it tends to trigger them and makes them really angry and frustrated. And I can resonate with that because autonomy is a huge need of mine. So another example could be putting yourself out there, right, in this transition process. Okay, so when you're putting yourself out there, it might feel extra vulnerable or triggering. And this is really big because some of us may have more aversion to that than others because of childhood experiences, right? So the reason I share this, like these triggers, if you're not aware of them, if you're not aware that micromanaging is a trigger for you, it's going to hijack your energy at work and it's going to make your day a lot more draining, right? Similarly, if you're not aware that like fear of rejection is a big issue for you and you don't allow yourself the space to work through that, it's going to drain your energy. It's going to make the process a lot more demoralizing. You're going to blame yourself. You're going to go into that spiral. All right. So how do you overcome or work through these emotional triggers? What can you do? Right? Because these are often unconscious and happening in the background. The first thing to do is really just bring them into your awareness. You don't have to fix them. I think oftentimes like just becoming aware, like, oh, okay, well, I'm feeling angry because my boss is micromanaging me. That in and of itself is really powerful and can be game changing because you can start to get to know yourself a little bit better and your needs, and you can start to identify, you know, this is what I need to stay more in that torrid state or to experience more of the torrid state that's going to be critical for me making an effective career change. All right. And it could be also asking questions when you feel that charge, that hot spot, like what's triggering me right now? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What is underneath this feeling, right? So if you're feeling anger, like asking yourself, why is that? What caused me to feel that way? All right. So now let's talk about number three. Number three, I'm going to go back to starting with the end in mind. All right. So one of the issues I hear all the time with career transitioners is I want to do something different, but I don't want to sacrifice my good pay or I don't want to sacrifice my work-life balance, right? So I've been talking about this a lot already. There's two reasons that you may be having this thought, or you may be holding on to this mindset. One is that you're afraid something isn't going to work out, right? Or you don't believe that it's possible, right? And when you don't believe it's possible, you're going to go into that black and white thinking. The other reason is because there's no clear vision of what you want. And when we don't have a clear vision of what we want, right? We don't know what it is we want to pursue. Essentially, our brain moves into a place of fear because it craves certainty. Our brain is a computer and it just wants answers. So if we don't have that vision, right, we're gonna go for that, like it's not possible, right? You're gonna waver back and forth. All right, is that clear? Let me know if you guys have any questions around that. But this ultimately comes from a place of, one, you don't think it's possible, and two, you don't have that vision. And when you don't have that vision, you're not giving your brain the certainty that it needs to be successful and take forward action. So having a vision, and this is where I think we all go wrong. This is where I went wrong for more than 7 years, right? It's not just about the what, it's really about the process. We spend a lot of time asking ourselves, what is that next job? What is that job role? And I get it, right? That's, of course, because that's ultimately where you need to be. But it's really a lot bigger than that, right? So how can you start with the end in mind? Rather than starting with the what, you need to start with bigger, deeper questions that we're not taught to ask ourselves. We're not taught to ask ourselves these questions in school. I remember even when I was in college and I was graduating, the career development support I was receiving was around, here is how to update your resume and here's how to go out and network. But nobody asked me, who do you want to be? And nobody asked me, what's motivating you today, right? Or what do you care about and why? So the vision, starting with the end in mind, is not just about the job role. It's first starting with the why. Okay, so here is if you guys are not familiar with Simon Sinek, I highly recommend watching his TED Talk. He wrote a book, Start With Why, and I've essentially adopted his model, and we use it here at Work Bigger to support with career change and to support people with crafting that vision and mission for themselves. So Simon Sinek, I'll give you just a very quick recap. He talks about why certain companies like Apple are really successful, right? They don't lead with, we sell computers. There's so many other companies that sell computers, right? IBM, name all of their competitors. What he says, he says Apple is really successful because they lead from the inside out. They lead with the thing that creates an emotion for other people. So what he says, Apple says, everything we do is about challenging the status quo. And he talks about how starting from the inside out, starting with that why, leading with that value, it's actually the way it's biological, it's the way our brain is designed. So things like the why, right, our mission, our vision, those come from an emotional part of our brain. So that's why that's ultimately what we're looking for when we're looking for career fulfillment, is we're looking for an emotional fulfillment. So you have to start with identifying your interests, your values, understanding who you are, how your pain points and how experiences have shaped you. And then from there, you move on to the how, right? Which is your strengths. What are you good at? And how can you bring that mission and vision of yours to life? And then from there is the what. Then you identify the job role, right? Or you identify if you want to bring this vision to life through a side hustle or a side project, or through volunteering or a hobby, right? Whatever that is. But the how is the what is really the third step. And we need to start with the deeper, the emotional part, the thing that we're not taught to do, because it's a lot harder for our logical brain to connect with. So I hope that's resonating with you all, but if it isn't, please think of a question and I can cover it for you too at the end. So the last thing I want to say again is that having this vision is brain friendly. It reduces confusion, and it also gives you something positive to work with and something exciting to look forward to. When you experience that aha moment, when you have an insight, you get that dopamine release, and that moves you toward an outcome. So I'm going to share an example here. This is Leah Newhoff, who is one of our members and clients. And actually the chat is blocking some of my slide, but I will give a recap of Leah's experience. Leah, when she came to Work Bigger, she was really frustrated. She worked in real estate development and marketing, and she was an artist. That's really what she wanted to do, but she had really internalized that art was only ever just going to be a side hustle, right? And it was not, and she says it here, that's not a realistic way to build a life. And what she was doing when she was in this place was that she was trying to find opportunities that weren't in alignment with what she wanted and with who she was. And essentially she was just really frustrated, right? Because she didn't see the possibility of building a life around her art. So all the decisions she was making, none of them really felt good. But then once she had that aha moment of, wait a minute, I can make art, I can incorporate art into my work, and I can find a way to make it a sustainable career for myself, then she totally shifted, right? She started looking for work that aligned with art. She started focusing on her side hustle more. The result was she now has her own creative studio, and she also has a 9-to-5 where she is a full-time artist that is supporting her life. And I stress this because I think with artists too, that's such a good example. That's like the career that we think is so hard to make a living out of. And she's a living example of that. And I think it's so powerful of what can happen when you have that insight, you connect to that vision, and then every decision you make from there is really focused. All right, so let's do a quick recap on everything. And I'm just going to check the time here real quick. So the goal here has been to learn 3 secrets to making a successful career change, right? So ultimately, 1, we talked about making decisions from the toward state to create the best possibilities for yourself. This is what drives action, and reduces inaction. Second, managing your brain and overwhelm by understanding your emotional triggers, right? So really, this will allow you to enjoy the career change process, right? And reduce the burnout that you're feeling, not just enjoying the career change process, but also reducing the burnout that you're experiencing in your day-to-day. And then the third, starting with the end in mind. So asking why first, creating your vision so that you can really see for yourself how you can have it all. So I want to talk briefly about the path, right? Your work doesn't stop here. Joining this call is really just the first step. And this is a traditional path. This is what many of us have experienced. This is what I shared, got me here to work bigger. But you know, we start this one job. It's not it. We feel really frustrated. So we test another job and that's not it. And we think the solution is to keep going for the what and keep finding the what, going from job to job. And meanwhile, we're just stuck in the negativity and we're feeling frustrated. We're wasting time, energy, money. That was the most frustrating thing for me. And then we're burning out in the process because there's so much time that we're spending in the away state, right? Unknowingly, right? No shame in that, but this is really what's happening. So eventually you get that calling to break the cycle and you're just like, enough, I'm ready for something different. And this quote, when I found this quote, it spoke so much to me and it speaks to so much of what we do in Work Bigger. But ultimately, right, it says, if you want something you have never had, you must be willing to do something you have never done. If you want something you have never had, you must be willing to do something you have never done. And to break out of this cycle, you need to do something you've never done. All right. And that's really what the Work Bigger path is about. That's what it requires you to do. It requires you to make decisions from the toward state so that you are planning with the possibility in mind, right? It's asking you to develop a vision, to have clarity of what you want. And once you have that foundation, then we work on a strategy that gets you the results, right? Then you can update your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your networking strategy, all of that stuff. It's coming from a focused, connected place. And then ultimately, that's where, you know, that's when you're working bigger. You're connected to your work, you're connected to yourself, and you're realizing your full potential. And I'll tell you, when you do this, that's where you see big changes in your life. Okay, the career change process is about possibility. It's a lot more exciting. It's not so demoralizing. I've been through it myself. I know how exhausting it is, right? But it becomes about possibility, and then you can create more for yourself. It's expanding versus limiting yourself. You're doing work you love, which is really important. That's why I shared with you guys that story about my background and where I come from, because I see the importance of really leveraging work to make an impact for yourself, whatever that looks like. It doesn't mean working for a nonprofit. It means doing work that really drives you and that allows you to show up as your best self, right? And then you have a greater impact on others in the world. And I think we all, it's just so, I think it's so helpful to think about, like, work has larger implications than we realize. Okay, all right, so I promised you a special offer for today. We're gonna spend some time doing Q&A. I see all the comments coming in, which I love. Thank you guys for being so interactive on this call. Before we get to the Q&A, just wanted to let you guys know that the special offer is I'm offering a private session for today. And Sam, thank you so much for sharing the form. So in our private session, what we can do is we'll talk through, and it's a free session, free consult. We can talk through what brings you into the away state and what brings you into the toward state, okay? What do you need to shift into the toward state? Because we all have different triggers, right? And when you're in the away state, it feels really hard, it feels really impossible, you're in that triggered place, you can't see the possibilities that are available to you. So what we can do on the call, we can identify what's going on in your life and what is it that you need help with to shift, right? And to figure out what it is you need to do to overcome these challenges, and also to create this career for yourself that is meaningful, that's allowing you to make an impact a lot faster. You don't have to spend 7 years like I did, and then testing out business school after that, which I did for 2 years. So all in all, a decade. And I'll tell you, whatever your biggest challenge is, I promise you I've seen it all at this point, just from working with the incredible members in Work Bigger, working with all of our clients, supporting people and organizations. So you will be in good hands, and I would love to just chat with you and see, you know, what it is that you need to make that transition easier for you. So Sam has shared the link here. And also, if it makes sense on the call, we can talk about how Work Bigger can support you in that bigger way, right? We could talk about here what this process can look like for you. All right? Because this is the Work Bigger method, and we can talk about how that applies to you if it makes sense. All right. I also want to stress, so this isn't a call, like if you're in that cycle right now and you're thinking, you know, what I shared is not fully resonating with you, that's totally fine, right? That's okay. But this call is really for people who are looking to try that different thing. You're kind of done with the cycle, right? You don't want a Band-Aid solution. You're looking for the real thing. So I just want to stress, that's really who I want to connect with on this call and see if I can support you. All right, so again, access the application here. I have a couple of time slots to chat today, tomorrow, and then I'm going away. I'll be in California for a few days, but I'll be back next week. So I've made a couple of days available next week as well. All right, and then the last thing I want to mention for the application, there's two parts. You complete the application, and I'll tell you, filling out the application will put you in the torrid state in and of itself, because it'll give you a chance to slow down. Think about where you are in your career change, career transition journey, career development journey, right? And it'll give you a chance to think about what you need and what you want. And we don't do that often enough. We're just on the go, doing, and really rushing through our feelings, our emotions, not taking the time to tune in. So filling out this application is actually one of the first things you can do to move into the torrid state. So somebody says, is there another way to sign up? I cannot access Google Docs on my computer. It's only through Google Docs that I have the application, but if you want to email me, here is my email, b@workbigger.co, and I can send you the questions, but I would say if you can fill it out at home, I have time slots available tomorrow too, and next week if you're not able to get it in time for today. So just email me if for some reason there's all the time slots get taken up. Just email me and we'll find a time to chat. All right. I think that's it. Thank you. I see Sam is coming back on, so I want to give everybody a chance to ask questions. So I'm going to pause right here and open up the floor to Sam and you guys.
Thanks so much, Velma. Yeah, we had a few questions come in. So for anybody who still has a question, feel free to leave it in the Q&A. We'll get to as many as we can, but let's get started. Amanda asked, how do you create a clear vision when you don't have one life purpose, but several passions?
Okay, so there is a difference between purpose, I'm going to call it mission, purpose, mission, and passion. Okay, passion is fleeting. Passion is something that you can be really excited about today, but you may not be as passionate about it tomorrow. I do not believe that finding your passion is the way. I actually think that's really misleading. Like, we're always told, find your passion, your path will unfold before you, but that's not true. Finding your purpose or mission is about connecting to something bigger than yourself. Okay, it's really looking at your values. Your passion could be parts of your purpose, but they're very different. Okay, so I'll use the Apple example. Like, we're here to challenge the status quo and change how people think. That is more of a mission and a purpose versus I'm really passionate about empowering people, or I'm really passionate about technology. Like, I don't know how strong the examples are, but there's a difference between the two. And I really suggest connecting to your mission, not your passion, for the long term.
Cool. Another question from an anonymous attendee this time. Velma, what's your number one tip for managing unemployment when the period is extending longer than you had initially imagined it would?
Yeah, I totally feel this. My husband was laid off last summer, and it was so stressful. We have a second child on the way now, but we have another child, and just, with bills, and I'm an entrepreneur, it wasn't easy. So what I would say is, and I said this to him too, although I can't coach him, so it's a little different. But I would say find ways to, when you're in that away state and you're feeling really drained and you're feeling really down on yourself about it, allow that. Give yourself the space to feel that. I think it's really important to feel some of the disappointment that comes with that. And then see what help you can line up to help you stay positive in the process. Because a lot of, when it comes to unemployment, a lot of it is out of our hands, right? You could be doing all this work, but then there's circumstances, right? Like maybe you're interviewing and then the job falls through. That happened to my husband a couple of times. And that can be really frustrating. So I would say give yourself the space you need to feel all of the disappointment that comes with that. And then see what resources you can line up to support you in the process so that you're staying in that more positive mindset and you're not like falling into the darkness.
Great. Okay, we had another question come in. What advice can you share about finding remote part-time work through LinkedIn, networking, and any other resources?
Yeah, so it's funny. I think my experience with seeing remote part-time opportunities, it depends on the company. I would say, and what also because with Work Bigger, because we have a community, what I see happens when you're part of a community, right? And there's free communities that you could participate in and there's paid communities. People crowdsource resources, right? So I would say it depends on the company. Sam, what was the website you mentioned again that was that shares?
I've heard of Flex Jobs before.
Flex Jobs. So looking for job boards that like focus on flexible work specifically. But I would say, see if you can ask around or tap into communities, like what opportunities are being shared. And then I would say start with the company that you're interested in, right? Because that will make it a lot easier for you to hone in on that job that you really like for the long term. And again, I find a lot of these resources being shared in community. So Dreamers and Doers Jobs and Gigs is a really good one. If you're looking for like a free group.
Yeah, Freya just left a comment. Actually, there was an article on Fairygodboss about remote working that was posted recently. So check that out. And then for some of you, this doesn't apply to all, but we had a webinar on returnships actually, I think last week it was. And it only applies to people who've been out of the workforce for caregiving, either to children or parents for a little bit of, it has to be an extended period of time. But there are a lot of companies offering returnships as well. And a lot of those can be flexible. So if that applies to you, I'd recommend go watching that webinar on our events calendar to get a little bit more information there. Okay, this is going to be the last call for questions. I see we have one more. So if you have another one, get it in right now. But somebody asked, so what happens if you find a new life purpose after you've been doing the same job for 30 years?
Okay, so your job is not your purpose, right? Your job is the what, your purpose comes from your why. The job could be like how you're bringing your purpose to life, right? So the purpose is bigger than the job. So I hope that's clear. Can your purpose shift over time? Yeah, because you're going to have new experiences, you're going to have new pain points, you're going to be a different person. Our values and our strengths, they shift as we progress in our careers. So what happens? I would say it's an opportunity to take a look at yourself and to really think about what it is that you want and what it is that you want to create next in the world. I think it's a beautiful opportunity to do something new and to leverage all of your skills and your experiences to create, more of that impact in the world. It's not a bad thing.
Great. Well, it looks like we've answered everybody's questions. So I want to thank you again so much, Velma, for hosting a great webinar today.
Thank you. And thank you, Sam, for having me. Thank you to Fairygodboss. And thanks everybody for joining, for all of your thoughtful comments and for your participation. I really look forward to connecting with anyone who's, filling out the form for the call and scheduling the call. There's 2 parts to it. So just make sure you fill out part 1 and part 2. But otherwise, yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to staying connected. And here is my email. If anybody has any questions too, feel free to reach out.
And all of these links on the screen, as well as the link to the private session, will be included in an email with the recording, and you'll all get that later today. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.